Your call has been forwarded to voicemail. The person you're trying to reach is not available. At the tone, please record your message. When you have finished recording, you may hang up.
Hi, Drew Dillman. This is Chase Wark. I'm currently on the Stable Cycling Podcast. Just another time that I'm beating you to be the first of something. We're calling to see, is there legit gravel beef between you and I? We thought we would just give you a call. We also heard that you just became a dad again yesterday and that your wife gave birth. So congrats on that as well. I hope you get the extra 50 dad watts that come along with each child. So
welcome back to the Stable Cyclist Podcast. We are literally today in Winona, Minnesota, in the house of Chase Wark. Chase, how are you doing, my friend?
Good. Thank you for having me, John.
Yeah, we went on a bike ride this morning. It's a quick trip and had some donuts, and we talked a lot about quick trip on the way. And you're going to have to subscribe and follow along on YouTube on the Stable Cyclist Podcast or the Stable Cyclist YouTube channel if you want to see that bike ride and your atrocious looking bicycle that you rode at Unbound. And I guess that's where let's start there. What the hell was that bike at Unbound that you rode that I was driving down the road 2 days after Unbound and a semi passed me and I looked under the semi and the fairings under the semi reminded me of your bike. So yeah, what the heck?
Yeah, so I guess for people who haven't seen Ben Delaney's video on the monster bike that I created, so I took my Laufsegle bike, which is my regular bike that I ride. It has the front suspension fork. And then we can start from front to back. So I had a profile design area front hydration system that I put on. It attaches to your stem. So it carries almost a liter of water. So my goal was to not have any water on my back. So if it was super hot, I could have cooling, and it's just like what you see in the triathlon, the weird bottle with the pointy nose front, a strap coming out, and then a Garmin mount. So not only did it carry water, but it also worked as an arrow attachment that I could use to get comfortable with puppy paws. So that was probably the most unique thing. I've never seen anyone else run something like that in gravel. And then behind that, to make it, we had to do some cutting to the area, the front hydration, because there's two flaps that attach to your frame, so it's a smooth fairing. We had to do some trimming for that. Just very
Who is we?
Oh, when I say we, it was me and my mechanic and good friend Zach McKinney at the Adventure Cycle and Ski Bike Shop. I did a Wednesday night ride, one of our group rides here, and then afterwards at 7:30, I ordered some Japanese food for us, and then we just started building this thing and lots of cardboard trimming, and so we got that on. That was the easiest thing. And then we also did a top tube bag, just make it really smooth airflow, kind of bro science. This looks aero, so it must be aero. None of this is actually wind tunnel tested, so maybe it made me slower. But yeah, and then I think the thing that got the most people talking was the frame bag, the hydration frame bag. So it's not original. The idea came from Colin Strickland, who did this in 2021. He took some polyester plastic, and created from the front to the back just a straight, carried 2 liters of hydration. So he didn't have to carry anything on his back, and it was super hot the year he did it. So I was like, okay, I'll do that. But then I ran around all the stores looking for the same sheet of plastic he used and couldn't find anything. So we found some yard sign that was plastic, but it was double layered, so it wasn't as neat as his. And one of the YouTube comments was like, this looks like a first year engineering degree, like school project. Like, it works. Did it look the prettiest? No, but it was super easy to Velcro on and off and stick a hydration bladder in there. And the only bad thing about it was I should have used some like hose clamps to get the hose attached to my frame. Instead, I was using Velcro. And when you're in the race, you're pulling super hard on that to like quickly get it. So I had Velcro pieces falling off of my straw, and then the hose was just kind of going crazy. Yeah, so like, you know, the first year engineering school project, I'd give it like a C grade. You know, gotta do some improvements, but I think it will come back again for Gravel Worlds.
All right, for Gravel Worlds.
Yeah, yeah, that's gonna be a unique setup as well, I think.
When you say we found a yard sign, did you literally take someone's yard sign, or did you...
this was in the back corner of Menards. They had like just big 4 foot by 3 foot like yard sign material stuff. So yeah, just grab that. And we first started with a piece of cardboard because we didn't want to waste the material, so we took some cardboard, made it, and then Zach was like, oh, we could make the fairing. So Collins was only in his frame. We had ours, the fairing went all the way to the back wheel. So, and we had the 2-inch tire in there, and yeah, went all the way to the back, which I think it was more aero doing that, and it kind of looked cool. I should have threw some
That's one way to put it.
Yeah. I should have threw some like flames on it or something, because it kind of gave me like Harley Davidson like.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned Gravel Worlds. Gravel Worlds is probably the other place where you had a very viral bike moment. I think GCN talked about you after Gravel Worlds last year or 2 years ago.
Last year, I think I got mentioned.
Because you have like, and your bike like inches closer to like a 1990s triathlon bike at Kona World Championships.
Yeah.
In its like freakishness. But last year you brought in like the almost full disc wheel, or 2 years ago.
Last year
in the back. And tell us about bringing that in and just the response. And like, I mean, you are a very good bike racer, but for sure your now probably 2 biggest viral moments, or why people around the world know who Chase Wark is because of like Frankenbike that you're building.
Yeah. So yeah, Head, which is a Minnesota company that creates wheels. They created a Head Jet 180, which was made specifically for Kona mountain biking. But yeah, in Kona you can't have a disc wheel, so to like bend the rules, which is one of my favorite things to do with the Unbound bike, they made it 180 millimeter deep fairing, so it's essentially just like there's a small hole for wind to go through, and it has essentially the exact same benefits as a full disc wheel. So I saw that at Head. They just love tinkering with stuff, and they built one. Not for me, this was their first one. They designed and put it on an Emporia rim, so which is their gravel rim, 26 millimeter internal, and then put that exact same fairing onto that rim. So then they just would ride it around for fun, and I guess they get bored sometimes. But yeah, so I saw that and I was like, hey, could you guys build me one? Like, you know, it'd be super cool to run at Gravel Worlds. I think it could get some media attention. And then sure enough, I end up just like keep getting lucky, and it's like I made the 20 rider selection, and then the 12 rider selection, then the 6, and then it was 3, and then it was just me and John Borstelman. And as the group got smaller and smaller, they had a photographer in the truck following the lead group, and like sure enough, they're like, what is that thing? So I got more pictures, and a couple meme pages posted memes about it, and Ben Delaney interviewed me afterwards, kind of just asking
Of course he did.
specifically about the wheel. And yeah, from there, then it got the attention of GCN. And at Big Sugar last year, I was walking around with my bike because I had to go get it fixed at the neutral support, and sure enough, I see GCN with Andrew Head talking with the other 180, and then they're like, oh my gosh, that's like the actual one that's been used. And then they got to do a little bike check of my bike, and it makes for a really good clickbait, like,
of course it does,
image. So
so you've had 2 second places at Gravel Worlds,
a second place and a third place.
Okay, gosh, I gotta fact check better.
That's okay.
Second place and third. I think I've heard you say that both years you were kind of cooked going in and you didn't know what, so you just like sent it.
Yeah, so the first year in 2022 when I got third, I was racing on a Specialized Venge. So like, this is a road bike. It had 32 millimeter tires. It was the weekend after the dam, so I really didn't bike.
What is the dam for? I mean, we're going to talk about it, but what is the dam?
Day across Minnesota. It's a 240-mile gravel race in Minnesota. So I was pretty cooked from that, and I was just like, well, that whole entire year I was racing on my Venge, I would always attack as early as I could and just try to use the aero advantage. And like, it's really hard to handle 32 millimeter tires in a group, and my bike skills aren't good. And then you give me a really bad like setup, and they just get even worse. So it's like, okay, let's go. And for 90 miles, I stayed away in the 2021 Gravel Worlds break, and then I was caught by 3 or 4 other riders, and then it just whittled down. And then both Gravel Worlds, actually, I think I like have just mentally cracked myself, because I remember that year Colin Strickland and John Borstelman, they attacked, and I was just barely dangling on. I'm like, I'll let you guys go first and second, like just let me hang on and get third. And I feel like, looking back, everyone was hurting at that time, and I shouldn't have said that. And then last year I went into the race. I came off of a trip. I was coming from Augusta, Georgia for the Para Nationals, where I rode a tandem bike. But I was just cooked from the heat and the racing and travel. So then I was just like, okay, my goal is just get as much attention for this wheel. And it was whittled down. And when it became me and John, he attacked me with like a mile to go on pavement. And I had slick wheels, the disc wheel, aero bars, and he got like a little gap on me, and I just gave up for that quick second. And I look back and I really regret giving up, because that last mile he got me on the little uphill, but it's downhill after that for quite a bit. And I'm like, my bike would have just like carried itself to the bottom, and I probably could have caught him. Would I have beat him in the sprint? Who knows? But I shouldn't have given up like that. So you and I have talked about, just like, I don't love talking about bike results. I like talking about the minutia that goes on in it. Especially on the pod, we don't talk about results, but I do want to talk about, we just came through Unbound. You did have this goofy bike, but you had kind of a rough year. Amazing start to the year. You win Rock Cobbler, which has become a very viral race. Bulls.
Yes. Based on the things that happened there. And then you had another good result, and then things started to kind of unravel for you. Tell me about Unbound. Tell me about the mentality coming into Unbound and what that was like when you knew, like, okay, like, this is the one I've been working for. Yeah, so I guess starting in January and February, I was putting in as much work, if not more, than I think everyone else in the United States. And I was like, I think I can do really, really well. And I mean, I think everyone's goal is to win Unbound you draw a big star next to it at the beginning of the season. And I was like,
30-hour week, 30-hour week, 40-hour week in January, and 100-hour week or block.
Yeah.
Keegan doesn't upload his stuff, but I'm like, I think I'm working harder even than Keegan. And then February was pretty good, but my wife and I, that's where it's been a lot of learning throughout this whole entire thing. And that was like, we kept inviting people down to come visit us. And like, I love having family, but just chasing this dream. After that, I realized like, I kind of have to be selfish, and my training wasn't as much. So training was still good, but it wasn't like another 100-hour week block, which maybe was a good thing too, but it wasn't what I wanted. So January, February, super good. And then March is where just like the decline started. So Belgian Waffle Ride, Arizona, I had a star next to that race as well, because that's in Scottsdale, or like just north of it, and that's where I was living. And it's on like single track, double track on gravel bike. So it's not like a mountain bike race where you do have some advantage, but like I really had an advantage knowing my Lauf fits 2.2 inch tires. No one else can fit that. Like I've been riding these trails every single week for 8 weeks, and right away in some moto whoops I crashed and had someone landed on me and I bruised my ribs, which I ended up finishing. The adrenaline wore off about halfway through the race. I got past, but I was fighting for top 5 essentially. And so finished that. I got 13th or 14th. Tobin and I sprinted, which I always end up next to him in a race finish. But then, the next week I didn't even touch my bike really, because I couldn't breathe. It just hurt, sleeping, everything. And then I think that not touching my bike helped me for Valley of Tears, which is where I think I had my biggest result. Keegan and I broke away after there was a crash in a sandy section, like 6 miles in, him and I off the front the rest of the day. And it's like, okay, well, when you ride with Keegan, and they had a whole bunch of media crew there, like, you're going to get attention. And I think I got like 400 Instagram followers after Keegan made a post and tagged me in it. Like, I bet people also saw that because I had the Jet 180 there. They're like, who's this guy riding with Keegan and on the funny bike? So, and then, then Mid-South was the next weekend, and the the day before Mid-South, I was standing in line at a Subway and got a call from Lifetime to get me in the Lifetime Grand Prix, and I like had to hold back tears then, because it was something I got denied from in October, November, and I was really bummed about it. But I look at everyone who was in, I'm like, yeah, I don't belong to get in, but like hopefully then next year I can get in. Like, I'll work really hard. And then I get in, but then I knew Mid-South was not gonna go well. Like, I was 2 weeks of pretty much no biking, but people were like, Chase has got to be a favorite. He just rode with Keegan in a breakaway and got second to him. Like, and then, but yeah, Mid-South, very not good race. And then I got back and took another week to heal. And being a pro, just kind of skimming by, I don't have the most amount of money. So I'm like, how can I get an x-ray done to make sure nothing's like actually cracked? It's just some bruising. So I ended up going to a chiropractor to get my x-ray done. Like, you know how all the chiropractors have deals? I like found one, and it was like $100 for an x-ray and an adjustment. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go there and be like, I don't care about the adjustment. Just like, take a picture of my ribs, please. Yeah. And then I got healed up, but by then it was almost time for Sea Otter. So I needed to learn how to ride a mountain bike. And so essentially my original goal before the Grand Prix was, really big training, January, February, March. And then and with some racing in March, I was going to have like a racing block. But then April and May, just focus on Unbound training, really big hours. But then, had to ride a mountain bike, which took away all of my April training just so I could be okay for Sea Otter. And then May, so traveling back from Sea Otter, I drove. And this is where people may think I just overtrained myself, but I really think I just overdid myself on things outside of biking. So it was going to Sea Otter, driving home from Sea Otter over 3 days. It was a 30-hour drive where I essentially was just eating beef jerky that Good Life gave me, like a couple Subway stops, but you're like on a road trip, you're never eating like a fresh homemade meal with vegetables and everything, especially when it's through South Dakota and Wyoming. Like you can't stop. There's even no Chipotle's. It's like Taco Bell or Subway. So diet was pretty bad. And then I get back, recover for a couple days. And then right as I started feeling good, I help with a called Driftless Gravel Camp. So it's a FTW, so women, transgender, and femi riders. It's held in Winona. Some of the riders stay at my house, so like I take pictures and everything. So that weekend, even though I didn't bike besides on a e-fat bike, it was it was mentally taxing.
Life stress.
Yeah, it was a life stress. And they even they let me do whatever, and I got to sleep. Like the previous year was really wake up super early, cook them breakfast, everything. They took a lot of stress off of me, but it was still just it wore me down. And then the following weekend was Granny's gravel grinder. So just like all these things kept adding up. And
so you're race directing that weekend, you're running the camp the week before.
And then not training really. Like I went and rode the routes, but then I just overdid myself with things off the bike. And then the next weekend after Granny's gravel grinder, or Mother's Day weekend, I rode with some friends. Saturday and Sunday, but Sunday was just like something has to be off. And from there it was okay, the training, I just need to feel better as a human and not even focus on training. It was like, it's a long season, okay, Unbound is just gonna be whatever it was. But
you still sent it in a break early.
So
what happened?
Going into the race, it just felt like another gravel race, but it almost felt like Gravel Worlds. My main goal was to get media attention, and however that happens. Like Ben Delaney we ran into each other pretty randomly actually on course. We did that. That was like
that blew up quick.
That blew up quick. I'm like, perfect. Media attention, done. I don't even care what happens anymore with the race. But then, and I thought the race, we were just going to start like full throttle, like, because you had the world champion there. You had Keegan. Like, Tobin was probably going to work for Keegan and keep the pace high. And just like everyone would be fighting for position that first 20 miles, which in a crit or road race usually just makes the speed go faster. But around mile 10, I think everyone was happy with where they were at. And I'm just like, what if I go right now and just attack? Like some people were already up the road. I'm like, if they're getting away, like maybe I can get away. So I sent it around mile 10. And then I was probably off the front for a few miles by myself. And then all of a sudden I see Eno, who was a former teammate of mine and fellow Minnesota rider, bridging because he had this bright orange bar tape. It's super easy to point him out. And he gets to me and it's like, okay, like Minnesota team time trial right now. And we get up to and we made it through. The first sector was around mile mid-20s. And we like made it through that. I'm like, perfect. Like, didn't have to go through the chaos of that and people flatting. So it was like, I was already happy with the breakaway. And then we connect with the front people. And then there was another section around mile 40, 45 called Divide Road. And this is like 4 to 5 miles, pretty gnarly stuff and rolling hills. So I'm like, that's going to be super hard if you're in a group because everyone's going to be punching it on the hills. And all of a sudden we're going through that. And also at the same time, my cleat got unscrewed from my pedal. So I'm like going through this gnarly section with my left foot just kind of bouncing in and out. But yeah, we make it through that. I'm like, perfect. I'm going to call ahead to my mechanic and like tell him I need a cleat, and hopefully we just make it to the first aid station. And yeah, so then it was, okay, we made it to the aid station. The group's got to be catching soon. And then sure enough, like group doesn't roll up right behind us in the aid station. And I had to chase back to the breakaway compatriots. But yeah, I catch them, and then I was like, okay, what if we make it to mile 100? So we make it to mile 100, where it was pretty hilly, and then right after that was Little Egypt. And sure enough, I'm like, oh, if we can make it through Little Egypt, perfect. Like, that's where the worst stuff is, and it's pretty flat after that. For like Kansas flat. Yeah, and then we get caught right at the end of Little Egypt, and I'm like, okay, well, I got enough media attention with people following, and yeah, the rest of the day was just, I didn't really care at that point. Sure. I was like, I think gravel racing is really cool, and my goal with each gravel race that I do or gravel event that I put on is I want stories to be able to be told from that. And I think I have a really cool story of just being like, yeah, I went on this like essentially like breakaway that probably wasn't gonna work, and I got a whole bunch of media attention, which, you know, would I rather have finished say 25th, or would I rather have been the guy off the front in the biggest gravel race in the world? And, you know, I don't know who finished 25th. No, not to be mean to him, but, like, did you get any social media attention for your sponsors? Probably not. You'd probably told I had a hard day on the bike and sat in the group, and, you know, just a typical gravel race post. Or I feel like I can tell a cool story and be like, I was off the front, not knowing when I was going to get caught in the largest race in the world. And yeah, I do wish the Lifetime Grand Prix helicopter would have followed us more. I felt like we kind of did get, you know, like in the Tour de France, they give a whole bunch of media attention to the breakaway. Like, I do wish we would have had a little bit more TV time. And, but
it's all good.
Yeah.
It's all good. A lot of, you know, you've been on a number of podcasts. If you guys want to know, like, Chase's origin story, go listen to Grodeo or Gravel Family. They did a phenomenal job of just talking to you about those basic things. You are a Minnesota boy like me. Mm-hmm. You're a Princeton Tiger, same school colors as Pelican Rapids, where I'm from. But you had this path where you got into bikes. You went off to college to try and become a
billionaire.
A billionaire, yeah. At Purdue University, of all places, to go become a billionaire. Realized quick that's not what you want to do. Came back to the U of M. Kind of got into the Minnesota scene here. Mm-hmm. You win the Dam, the Day Across Minnesota, like we talked about. You have this big result at Gravel Worlds. You have gone fully into this pro lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And I want to talk about what I don't hear anybody talking about, or very little talking about, the risk for you guys. You mentioned earlier, like, I needed an x-ray.
Yeah.
I can't afford an x-ray. And everybody, to me, just seems to watch you guys, and the women doing this too. They watch the Unbound Instagram story the whole time, and they're cheering for everybody, and it looks so sweet. And we watch the highlight package back on YouTube or their documentary series, and it just looks so dope. And then I hear stories like that and other things you've told me in the last day and a half being here, and I'm like, what? Like, this is not sexy and glamorous. It's hard.
Yeah.
So tell me about the risk of, I'm not going to have a day job. I'm just going to pursue this pro life, and what that was like. And, like, when did you kind of cross that threshold and decide this is fully what I'm going to do? Yeah,
I would say the thought of becoming a full-time pro, it was always something like, oh, that looks... I heard of struggles in, like, the crit scene, and even just you hear, like, Phil Guyman, like,
Yep.
I'm skimming by on $10 a day. That was his book.
Yep.
And I'm like, you know, even then, like, at least they chase their dream, and they hopefully don't have any regrets from it. So I was like, you know, maybe that can happen at some point, where as long as I can, like, cover food, cover housing, like, if I can make it financially okay. Maybe I'm not putting away, you know, a whole bunch of money in a 401k or whatever, but you know, maybe it's just also just a few years of missing out on retirement money. So at the Unbound in 2022, I was the first person to finish that had a full-time job, which was 29th. Everyone else in front of me was a full-time pro. And I'm like, okay, like I'm the fastest non-pro. Like maybe if I was a pro, I could do even better. And then I had Big Sugar was kind of the same thing. I had a pretty good result there. And then it was just like, okay, you know, and I was on the Mazda team, and they were giving me a little bit of money, and they would cover travel and registration and a bike. So I'm like, okay, like I'm making that money. I had my business, and this was right before all of my events started. So I'm like, okay, maybe I can make a little money from the events and coaching, and all these small things add up, and okay, maybe let's see what happens. So then the chat started in 2023 with my wife. We're like, okay, like she believed in me and that I would work really hard. And we were like, okay, let's have you quit at the beginning of 2023. I'm like, actually, let's wait till I get my bonus from US Bank. Because like, why not take a pretty nice bonus before you leave? So, and all of my managers, I had 3 different ones my time at US Bank, but they were all super, super supportive of my biking, and like I still keep in touch with some of them actually. So then 2023 I was coaching like 10 people. So it wasn't a whole bunch of money from coaching. The events, I didn't put on grannies before or the hot dish for like people actually paying. It was just a free event in 2022. And I made that jump, and from there, I also had to have some money saved. So that was like the deals. And then
was that scary to cross that, like to make that jump?
Yeah, the first day I woke up with like, usually it'd be like, I'd wake up at 6:55 and log into my work laptop at 7:00.
Okay.
Because I work from home, and my commute is from here to there's a chair right there.
Yeah.
Like 30 seconds. Yeah. And as long as the laptop didn't have to do a random Windows update, like I was on, and I'd get off at 3:30. But that first day I woke up, I'm like, oh, this is weird. Like I am fully like, everything is on me now to make this dream happen. And like, you know, I can decide to put in still just 15 hours of work, or I can do 30 hours of riding. Like it went from, okay, bike, if I don't make it biking, that's okay. Like I have this nice job that's I get to sit in a couch, and it was a pretty easy job.
Yeah.
But now it's like, okay, I'm now only making like $10,000 for the rest of the year. I need to work my ass off. Yeah. So the following year I can hopefully make more money and just like put in the work. And I was still on the team, so there was, I wasn't learning as much as I have this past 6 months. I would say, so I did the team thing with Mazda Lauf last year. And just, you know, went through the motions of being on the team, and I really didn't make any connections with any of the sponsors besides Lauf and Head.
Yeah.
So there was a struggle that way. That then I did the full year, and then come October and November, I had to make the decision of, do I want to stay with the team, or do I want to do a privateer program? And I feel like there was a cap on what the team, like in the future, you know, I'd be restricted with how much money I could make being on the team. And my goal still is I want to, any sponsors be like, not only sponsoring me as a racer, but sponsoring or being a part of my events. And just like really believing my dream of not just being a racer, building community. So yeah, the last 6 months have been the biggest struggle of taking a pay cut, even from that $10,000 to essentially no money. But I've worked really hard with coaching and my events that those are growing in the amount of money I can make. And yeah, I guess. But I've also, I feel like I've learned so much from doing my own privateer program. It's like the team was nice because housing was figured out for stuff. You know, you need nutrition from Morton. Like John would get you more. It was just like simple things that where now that I'm doing my own thing, it's like, okay, I need Morton. Oh, I gotta like reach out for more. Or do I need just like, oh, I should get a tire sponsor, or oh, this, you know, clothing. Like it's just you have to, as a privateer, it's even more on you. So like when I say I took that jump and that first day it was like, I am gonna determine my future. Like I still had the team helping me with my future, but now that I'm a privateer, it's everything is on me. So yeah, it's been a blessing and a curse at the same time, but I do feel like it keeps ramping up. And,
Are there times where you have, you know, do you ever see yourself going back to that 9 to 5? Like, or do you think about like, I think I can make all these things work and I can keep diversifying what I'm doing? And, you know, you haven't mentioned like this is an Airbnb where you live.
Yeah.
And so that's like another way that you've diversified. But have you ever thought about like, I'm going to go back to that someday, or this is what I'm going to do?
Yeah, I would say I was super close to texting my manager last October and being like, is there a spot at your place? Because my results weren't the best. And I was like, man, I'm still just barely making it by. I was like, I could still be on the team, but I could go back to working a full-time job. And then like the events made okay money. It was just, I want to provide me and my wife, and we want to have kids, like a comfortable future. So it was, if I keep going the way I'm going, will that happen? And the answer was no. But I think right as I was having that, like 2 or 3 people texted me asking if I would coach them.
Okay.
And it was like, okay, that's, you know, a few $100 extra. And then I got another text. I can't share like too much information about it.
That's fine.
But like there will be an opportunity for me to make more money starting next year, I believe. Okay. So it was like, it's like, okay, maybe 2024 we're still, you know, I'm still learning the ropes, but I'm building all of those relationships in hopes of 2025, 2026. Okay, now I'm making more than what I was at my job, where that's kind of always been the goal, is like, I want to at least make what I was making at my old job.
Of course.
And in the future, it looks like that should be happening outside of racing. So even if racing doesn't go well, event promotion and coaching, which are my side incomes, that really looks like it has a lot of potential. So, and I still go back and forth sometimes, like, man, like I could just do a 9 to 5 job and maybe I lose a few positions at the race, but then I also go and like, I remember how just chaotic life was then. I mean, life is still chaotic. You saw the garage, like things are still very chaotic, but I wouldn't be able to go to Unbound for a week and recon and just like all these small things that are the 1% that I hope are going to add up. So I still do think like, oh yeah, 9 to 5, good paycheck. But then I think of like Abigail and my wife, like we would just talk at like 8 p.m. because I would get off of work and I would go bike. and not much. Like, we would eat, she'd make dinner, and she's always believed in me and my dream. So even when I had my job, she was still like, okay, I'll cook you dinner, like I'll clean the house. And I mean, she still does all of that, but I want to at least contribute a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I don't want to go back to that. Like, she would have to drive, and I'd be on my laptop, like on a phone call, so she couldn't talk to me in the car ride. And just like, I felt like we were not growing apart, but we weren't growing. You should always be growing closer with your significant other. And I don't want to have to go back to that. 'Cause I think if I go back to my job, then biking is really going to take
a backseat.
Yeah. So, but yeah, for right now, I don't think I'll be going back to a 9-to-5.
So Chase, if we are hidden ad read time.
Yep.
This is the driftless region, and if we're going riding, say, near Houston, Minnesota, where should I go if I need some work done on my bike?
Yeah, so just recently, Owl City Cycles out of Houston, Minnesota, opened up. I've heard good things. I saw you went down there for some photo shoots or modeling, and you were telling me they have some good snacks down there, and that I no longer have to stop at the BP gas station. So I'll be swinging by Owl City to get some food, chat with the owner, and see what the new shop in the area is like.
Yeah, so down here in this area of the state is the Root River Trail, which is, world famous. It's one of the original rail trails, especially here. And it's gorgeous. It takes you through the driftless region essentially, and it starts on the eastern side in Houston.
Yep.
And the you can literally like take a rock and throw it from Derek's shop, Owl City Cycles, and hit the trailhead. So, and from there it just follows the Root River. It's gorgeous, and Derek has a lot of e-bikes there. He has, if you're really into the kind of bike riding that you and I do, he has some stuff for people like us too. But whatever you need, he can get and take care of you. And it's just really good to have a shop on the eastern edge of the Root River Trail, because I do believe there's only 1 or 2 shops on the entire trail system, which blows my mind that you have one of these places. And we've been talking a lot about economic development and what kind of things happen when you bring a lot of bikes to a city, and that all these communities on the Root River Trail don't have this kind of thing. So really awesome thing for Houston. Yeah,
I feel like it's the first, I haven't been there, but I feel like it's the first legit bike shop that's on the Root River Trail. The one in Lanesboro is kind of just your like run-of-the-mill bike rental only bike shop. I think if I brought a tubeless tire there and asked them for some sealant, I don't know. So it's good to now have a place that if I'm riding the trail or in Houston just for riding, it's my favorite area to ride is south of Winona, which is Houston. So good to know that there's now a place down there to stop and get all my bike needs.
And the gravel down there is dynamite. For those of you that are looking for a place to come ride really good gravel, it's gorgeous. And Chase does know the area so well that I had posted a screenshot from some of the promotional work that we were shooting. And I said, this is on my story on Instagram, I'm like, can anybody like name where this is? And Chase goes, it's this valley near Houston, Minnesota. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me.
Yeah, so, Christensen Road and Perkins Valley.
Yeah.
Or Perkins Valley Road. I think it has almost 2 names, but yeah.
That is a true local that can name it down to the road in the valley. So fantastic.
It's a big sandstone slab. Like the first time I ever rode past it, I'm like, this is beautiful. Because if you go down, I think you can see the river even on the downhill part. It's just like one of those breathtaking views that you're like, okay, I'm going to hit my brakes so this lasts a little longer.
Yeah. Derek and I, the shop owner, went out on a ride when we were there, and we went up the climb, and there was like 4 side-by-sides parked, and all the people are out taking pictures and just exploring. So it is a very picturesque region, and it's so unique to anything else in Minnesota. So make the trip to the Houston, Minnesota area, and when you're there, hit up the Owl City Cycles bike shop. So, got some coffee. We're locked and loaded to keep rolling here, Chase. You and I have been talking a lot about inclusion. I just came from interviewing Bruce Martins yesterday. You can go find that interview on all the platforms. Bruce, of course, works in Minneapolis. He's trying to do a lot to get a lot of kids on bikes. Mm-hmm. And you are also trying to get opportunities for people to come out and ride gravel especially, but do more with bikes. You run these 2 races, actually like 3, maybe 4.
Several.
It's a rolling number. Yeah. You run a number of races. You do run this gravel camp that is targeted at a very specific group of people.
I guess I should say
you're a part of the gravel camp. Yeah. My bad.
No problem.
But why is inclusion so important, and why is it so important for you to see more and more people getting on bikes to get out and explore and do those amazing things?
Yeah, I think just getting more people on bikes in general is really good. It selfishly, like, if I can get a person on a bike and then they buy a Lauf, like, that's really good for me. But I like to find it builds community and friendships, and I think it's a really good way to just make more people in the world happy. Like, there's not too many sad people riding a bike, or if they start sad, hopefully they end their bike ride happy and they end it in a cool spot. So yeah, just and I want everyone to feel welcomed at all of these events. So I put on my events. I try to keep them relatively low cost. I have mentioned, like, they do help provide me a living, but it's a $50 registration or a $60 registration, like the hot dish. And, you know, I do put a lot of time into it, so I, you know, got to get compensated for that. But, like, if anyone was ever like, Chase, I can't afford $50, I would give them a free registration.
Yeah.
But, yeah, just if I can get more people out, build those friendships, have people create memories at my events, like, it makes me happy as a human, and so it is selfish for me to want to get more people out on bikes. And I think gravel roads, like, you're not as stressed about getting hit by a car. You can just go at a slower pace, enjoy the scenery more around you, and yeah.
So as you talked about, you do help with this gravel camp that is for non-binary athletes, correct?
Transgender.
Okay.
Transgender women and femi riders and non-binary. We've had everyone out there riding. So
you're working in that camp setting. You're running your races. You're very servant-minded. You're serving people. Mm-hmm. Has that always been the case, or was there a point where you were just like, give me my damn bike and let me go race, and I don't really care about everybody else? And I'm guessing that is the case, because I think that's how everybody starts, is they're like, let's go. Mm-hmm. Most of us who are hyper competitive. What gets you from that guy who just is saving his money for his specialized diverge that he can go get, to being this guy now where you're like, no, this is about everybody? Mm-hmm. What changed, or what kind of got you to that point?
Yeah, I guess almost right away when I started biking, I had people helping me and serving me in a sense of, like, I'll take some time out of my weekend. So, like, Aaron Johnson, who we've talked about, he was one of the first people who was like, yeah, I'll go ride with you, and, like, you know.
Tell us more about Aaron Johnson, because like, you and I have talked about him and we have a reference point, but people watching or listening might not know, like, who is this guy?
Yeah, so I grew up in a really small town, Princeton. The town itself is 4,000 people, but there are townships out in the country. It's probably, I don't know, I graduated with around 250 people. Okay. But still, like, you know, pretty blue collar, redneck farming. And in fourth or fifth grade, we had the same teachers in fourth and fifth grade. I remember him bringing a bike in, and I believe the story was to tell us to like wear a helmet when we bike, and I just vividly remember that. And
scare tactics.
Yeah,
scare tactic.
Yeah, he was one of my more favorite teachers. Yep. He also taught technology, which I was a big fan of back then. And then I had a bike to school. That story's out there. But then when I bought my first road bike, I emailed him because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, and like this is the only person I know that has a road bike. So I asked, like, do you still road bike? And he said yeah, and we chatted, and we ended up, then he brought me out on a couple rides, and I didn't know the area for biking, so I was just like, where is this dude bringing me? Like, lots of trust in him to bring a 15-year-old out just biking. And then he gave me my first set of bibs, my first jersey. He sold me my first like actual race bike, because my first bike was from like the 90s, and like carbon posts, or like carbon and aluminum joints just everywhere.
Of course, yeah.
So and just I remember him helping me out a lot, and just like pay it back when you can. And it was like, even then when my friends got into biking, and I remember giving him some of the bibs that I got. So it was like almost right away I was, how can I help other people enjoy this sport? Like, oh, my friend needs bibs. Like, here's the enjoyment of bibs instead of riding without them. So from there, then I also had Dave Lundy from the Ramsey Bicycle Club, and then Andy Minier, or he was nicknamed Mean Dog, but I remember him, like, he really took me under his wing at bike races. Like, he was on the Revolution elite team, and it was like, you see them in their black kits and kind of just like the super cool, tough bikers, and I'm just like, man, I don't want to, like, I'm not good enough to chat with them, and like, I always want to make sure that I provide like an open, safe place for people. I don't want to be intimidating to people at events. So like, if anyone ever sees me at an event, come say hi. Like, I promise.
Don't be intimidated by your weird bike.
Yeah, don't be intimidated by the weird bike, or if I grow a mustache again. So then, like him, or the other Revolution people like Ben Doom, Charlie Shad, Jim Bell, Noah. They all put time and effort into making me helping me with biking, whether it was teaching me paceline, how to register, signing my registration form since I was a junior. Like, so I've always had people help me, and several of them have been like, when you can, make sure to pass it on. So it's, okay, what can I help with and pass on? And selfishly, again, the gravel camp is also for me to like work on my media skills, work on my, I want to have people come visit here, and like, someday when I'm not gone every weekend racing, like, I'd love to follow other gravel teams or road teams in my van and like get media for them. So like, help them out with that. And so it's always just been passing on the help that was given to me as a junior to other riders now.
Yeah, right on. And for those of you that aren't from Minnesota, like, you kind of just named like a who's who of like central Minnesota bike scene. Yeah. And like all these big players that are truly some of the nicest guys that you will ever meet, even though they'll like absolutely rip your legs off in a race. But like, what you're talking about is so important, because I often tell people one of the most like vulnerable feelings I've ever had is the first time I went to a road race, and it was my first bike race. Yeah. And there's a lot of reasons this happens, but there's so much imposter syndrome just with whatever bike you ride up with, right? It could be like the dopest thing, and the second you see somebody else who has something a little nicer, you're just like, oh crap. And then, your kit what you're wearing might not look good, or your shoes might not look good, or you might have like, the $50 helmet and everybody's in the $400 helmet. Yeah. There's all these things that make you feel not worthy of being there. And I remember being in a race. It was one of my first or second races ever, and some old dude was yelling at a kid for having a kickstand.
Oh, yeah.
And, and like the kid was just wanting to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And like even thinking about it makes me feel emotional, but I'm just like, I don't ever want to be that person that makes somebody not feel like this is the best place to be.
Yeah.
Because what the bike provides is the best stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And Bruce talked a lot about it in his interview about like what the bike does for us emotionally and support wise and freedom wise. But like, I don't want to be the person that's taking that away. And so whenever I hear stories like you told me a lot of Ben Doom and Charlie Shad stories yesterday that were amazing. And like they don't need to be included here, but we need to be those people to whoever's around us, that they feel loved and they feel cared for. So all those scary things, how do I fill a registration to USAC race?
Yeah.
Like that's legit nerve-wracking if you've never done it. And unfortunately, maybe the USAC people need to be listening to this too, but a lot of times those race officials are not always the friendliest people to be around, which just adds to how we feel.
Yeah, one of my first crits ever, I was in the kit that Aaron Johnson gave me, and one of the officials yelled at me for wearing a non-sponsor, or like for wearing a different team's kit, and it's like, okay, well, this was given to me, and like, what else am I supposed to do? This is, want me to show up in basketball shorts and a t-shirt? Like, you're gonna yell at me for that too, like, and I think that's why gravel racing is becoming more popular. It's
100%.
It's not, and maybe it's not gravel racing. Yes, there is still a front pack that wants to race, but it's like a marathon. I always talk about, like, there's always gonna be racers, but there's also the people just wanting to finish, and it's way more welcoming and not intimidating. Because even at gravel races, I see someone in like the Post Normal kit, and like every European racer always intimidates me. I don't care how fast they are.
Yeah.
So if someone shows up to even a local gravel race like that, I'm like, I'm intimidated by this person. Like,
well, and I've heard people, and I won't drop names, but I've heard people in this region talk about you showing up at races, and not by how you behaved, but just you being there.
Yeah.
They were just like, oh, Chase Wark is coming. Like, and I'm like, so go on race, And I do think you're right that the gravel has grown partly because when you show up to that USAC race, you got to deal with the registration. It's not always a friendly process. You got to deal with an official who's not always, like, let's be honest. The people that become race officials, and we need them, right? But they're the kind of personalities that are going to be found in HR.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
They like rules.
Yeah.
And they like to see them. So they're kind of prickly, and it can be just kind of a rough experience. You go to a gravel race, and especially with how gravel started with, like, I've heard you talk about Ragnarok, and like you send a postcard in, you still send a postcard in.
Yeah.
And they're more worried about when you show up and check in, like, man, do we got the beers cool enough for after the race, or do we got enough Coke for everybody after the race? And there's just such a different vibe, and it allows for, like, especially those mid-pack people to show up and not feel like they're on the outside looking in before we even start.
Yeah.
So further down this inclusion, and I don't know if this is inclusion because I don't really know the story here. You have raced at the Paranationals?
Yeah, Paranationals.
2 times? 1 time?
It was 2 races the same week.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's been 2 like mentions on different podcasts, and then it's just been kind of like swept aside. I'm like, no. I want to hear about this. Like, let's talk about Paranationals. So, how did you end up there? What's the story? And when did this happen?
Yeah, so my old coach, or my coach from last year, was Noah Middlestead, and he's a para athlete.
Yep.
So, he knows people in the para community, and I guess one of the tandem athletes was looking for a new pilot. So the person who rides in the front of the bike, and this person is visually impaired, so he's in the back, so they do need a front person. And then, yeah, essentially he flew out here for a week just to Winona so I could learn how to ride a tandem bike because it's different. Like, it's a little swirly. Like, now I know what every bike is stiff after riding a tandem bike because that thing's just a noodle essentially, which makes sense. But then, so yeah, we rode together, and then it was like, okay, let's go out to nationals. And we went out to nationals, and there was only 2 other tandems out there, so it was 3 racers in like a 60-mile road race, and I'm just like, this is gonna be interesting. Or maybe it was a little longer than 60, but not super long. But it was in the Georgia heat on like rolling hills. So yeah,
and if you do not live in the South, the Georgia heat is otherworldly.
Yeah. So we go out, we race the road race, we win that national championship. So I have a Stars and Stripes, and I'm currently the national visually impaired national champion for the pilot. And then, yeah, again, the time trial was the next day.
Yep.
So then we also won that. So yeah, 2 Stars and Stripes jerseys back to back.
Okay.
And just with how busy I am, I had to tell him like, hey, like the goal is for his name's Brandon.
Okay.
To get to the Paralympics, and it was like, okay, maybe I can be the person to help him get there. But with how busy I am, and
thanks Lifetime Grand Prix.
Yeah, thanks Lifetime Grand Prix. We would have had to do more races than just nationals. It was going to be like, there's trials, there's the Pan American stuff, there's 4 to 5 different races, and I'm just like stacked on top of trying to do everything else. It was just, hey, like, I'm sorry, but this isn't gonna work. And so we just went our own separate ways, and he's still racing, and I think he's doing really well. But
so Chase, prior to you getting that tearful phone call in Subway about the Lifetime Grand Prix, you had an action-packed schedule that I heard you go through on one of the podcasts, and my ears perked up when I heard that you were planning to go to Bismarck, or actually Mandan, North Dakota, to the Lion's Heart Gravel race that is in its first year out there. What drew you out there besides a big prize purse?
Yeah, I guess like first it was the prize purse. Like, if there's anything within, that Midwest driving range of 8 to 10 hours, it's like, okay, the prize purse is cool. I think I'll go chase that. But then, not only that, but they were putting out some really cool videos of the course, and everyone thinks the Midwest is flat, boring. The Dakotas, Iowa, everything is just boring out here. And I think gravel racing has shown the beauty of the Midwest. And I saw the videos of their course, and I'm just like, I've always wanted to go out on the western side of the Dakotas and ride that area, and even just do a gravel camp out there, because I feel like it's super underrated. It's probably super secluded. And I was just like, I messaged them, I'm like, hey, like, can you hook me up? Like, I really want to come out and race. And and just chatted with them for a little bit, and it seemed like really cool people putting it on. And I was excited to finally be able to ride out in the Western Dakota area.
Yeah, of course.
So
well, if it's good enough for you, Chase Wark, it's good enough for anybody watching or listening. Lion's Heart Gravel Classic is July 13th, and they have distances of 35, 65, and 100 miles. A lot of people in the region call it the closest thing you'll get to the North Dakota Badlands without going there. And it is gorgeous, and it is very climby. Yeah. And so it is worth making the trip. You can find more information about registration on Lion's Heart Gravel Classic on Instagram, or you can go to 701cyclingsport.com. and find information there. And it is a $7,000 prize purse split equally between men and women. And I do believe they pay out for all of the races, not just the 100. But I could be wrong on that. So.
I think the 2 longest distances have payout. Yeah,
I believe you're correct. So here I'm doing an ad read for him. I'm not even sure if I got the right info. Sorry, DJ, manager of the race. So, yeah, Lions Heart Gravel Classic. We talked a lot about that stress of like moving into like fully pro and like I'm fully autonomous now. I'm privateer. Mm-hmm. I'm not relying on a team in any manner.
Yeah.
I have some connections from Lauf, from nutrition sponsors, etc. How stressful, though, is that sponsorship search? And I say that it's today when we're recording, it's July 14th. This won't drop for another week. But, you know, in 2 weeks, everybody kind of says the window opens in July for sponsorships to start talking.
Yeah.
You got to be ready again to, like, go to the well and see if they've got anything in their well.
Yeah, it's been a grind. Like, it's been actually a really fun grind because I get to meet cool people and maybe I make a good impression. Maybe they're just like, who is this dude? Like, sure, he's in the Lifetime Grand Prix, but does he have any results? And so it's been fun to find partners that either believe in just like, oh, like Defeat Socks. I talked to them at Seattle and I go to people or companies that I really believe in their product, and I saw their Aero socks and I'm like, that's a sock that I really want to ride. So like they gave me some socks and just like they believe in my mission of being the most Aero person out there. And then I have other ones, like I'm in chats with Good Life brands, and hopefully that happens in 2025 where I brought up the idea of like a beef sponsorship for the hot dish and just like fun things like that where it's like where people can actually see the product being used, not just hey, can you give me X amount of money? Like that would be awesome if I could just be a big name and be like, hey, you know, I win some bike races, like pay me $10,000 and I'll put your little logo on the jersey. And you know, at Unbound, like I saw people who have big names with tire sponsors using all their tires, and I'm like, you know, they don't even believe in the product they're using. Where like with every company that I partner with, I want to believe in their product and I want them to believe in me and like what I'm doing, not just as a bike racer. So come. I mean, I'm already shooting sponsorship emails for next season, and it's
well, and that's where people don't understand. You know, not that the bike at Unbound was a gimmick, because obviously, like, it was very well thought out why you're doing the things you're doing.
Yeah.
But you also said, I was trying to get media attention. Because we're almost ready to open that shopping window where you got to be like, look, I can get a lot of eyes on whatever we're doing. And that has as much value today, and people can like that or not, as actual race results.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, how you played Unbound is so well done. You were just like, I'm not going to get a result here. I'm kind of cooked. I'm going to make sure people still know who I am when this is done. So there's been some chatter of late in the podcast sphere. You know, the Bonk Bros, your name keeps coming up on the Bonk Bros podcast. And although they're not big into name dropping other podcasts, I will shamefully do it, as we've already mentioned Grodio and Gravel Family. And we'll talk about Bonk Bros. A number of them have been on the show. Spoiler alert, another one, Tyler's going to be on soon. But your name keeps coming up more and more of late. Do you and Drew Dillman have real beef?
Yeah, we have gravel beef, so...
Okay.
Yep. No, it's not actual, like, to be honest, I actually... From a distance, I like look up to Drew. Like he seems like a really caring father, which anyone who's like a really cool dad is someone I always aspire to be. And then, you know, he's also a really good cyclist, even though I keep beating him. So, I guess I'm just complimenting myself with that one also. But then also, like, he runs a successful coaching company.
Yeah.
And like we were talking about yesterday, their whole, the whole Ignition coaching crew just seems like really hardworking people who are very passionate about the sport.
Yeah.
Where you could go with some other really big name coaching companies, but how passionate are those coaches? Are they, Drew, Dylan, Lance, Scott? They're at the races. They know what's happening. They're up to date on how do you actually do a gravel race? How do you win a crit?
Yeah.
So it's just, they run a really successful coaching company that I look up to. And if my coaching company or business ever expands to more than just me, I look at their company as like this is how things should be ran. Yeah. So yes, Drew said I was gonna be burnt out for Unbound. I was burnt out because I tried biking while trying to do a bajillion other things. It'd be like trying to be a dad and biking 30 hours a week. It just would not go well. But yeah, he said I was gonna suck, I think was the literal word at Unbound, and I beat him even after being off the front. So I think he got 0 media attention at Unbound, and I got 100 miles worth of media attention.
Yeah.
So
do you think we might be able to call him? And we may have procured his phone number from a friend of mine, and I think we should try and call him. Now, he just had a baby, or his wife just had a baby, I think, yesterday.
Yeah.
When we're recording it. So he may very well see a strange phone number and not answer. But we're going to try and call him and ask him if there's beef between you and him.
Ooh, I don't think we're going to get an
he's gonna
answer.
You can leave a voicemail.
Your call has been forwarded to voicemail. The person you're trying to reach is not available. At the tone, please record your message. When you have finished recording, you may hang up.
Hi, Drew Dillman. This is Chase Wark. I'm currently on the Stable Cycling Podcast. Just another time that I'm beating you to be the first of something. Yeah, we're calling to see, is there legit gravel beef between you and I? We thought we would just give you a call. We also heard that you just became a dad again yesterday and that your wife gave birth. So congrats on that as well. I hope you get the extra 50 dad watts that come along with each child. So, yeah, if you're not super exhausted, you can give us a call in the next 30 minutes. If not, yeah, we can just see each other at another bike race like Core 4 or something. So, okay, bye.
That was fantastic. You better keep that up here. If he calls you back, we don't want to miss that. So you speaking more about Bonk Bros and not necessarily about them, but just about the guys in it. I've worked a lot with Adam Sabin, and I've done some work on the channel with Dylan. You and Dylan are both Silka athletes, which there's parts of your bike setup where I'm just like, man, Josh Portner must have been just face palming himself over all that when we see the amount of wind tunnel work they did with Dylan.
Yeah.
But my question is who's the bigger nerd between you and Dylan?
I'm going to have to go with Dylan, probably, but I also think he has more resources to be nerdy. I feel like I'm the redneck just toying on his truck or whatever, just is it gonna work, is it not, what's gonna happen? And he's this dude that's just has more resources available, and I'm hoping Silka can bring me into the wind tunnel sometime and we can did the hydration pack work or not. So I think another time where this is where I really think he is a bigger nerd, because when we got to the start line, he saw that I had Race Kings, and he's like, "Oh, you didn't trim your side knobs off?" I'm like, oh, like, he's got a, half watt advantage on me with that. And I was just like, I didn't even think of that. So just like, to think of that. And he's like, yeah, that's how we tested in the wind tunnel. And
Yeah.
I was like, I didn't even watch your video. I don't know if he mentions it in there, but I was like, okay, that's something I didn't even think of. And just for him to go that one extra, ooh, look at this.
Oh, baby. Put it on speaker.
Hello?
Yo, just got your voicemail.
How are you?
guys recording a podcast right now?
Right now, man.
Yeah, right now.
And I'm on it?
Yeah, you're on it.
Nice. All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yes. John and I were just wondering what you think of the gravel beef. We need to get a sponsor, like Good Life Brands, to sponsor the beef.
Dude, I'm all about the beef. I mean, for anybody who knows me from the other podcast, not worth mentioning, I am all about the beef. Real, fake, I don't care. I'll bring it.
You can name drop other podcasts on here, Drew. We've done like 5 already.
Oh, good. Well, yeah, the other one.
Yeah. Have you asked Chase what his VO2 is?
Yeah, I just assumed it was as bad as mine.
I think it may be worse. I actually want to go get tested to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. For some reason, like me and you, I kind of just put us in the same little like bucket of subpar pros or whatever. Hopefully you don't take that as offense, but
no, we're
maybe you do.
The pack-filled pros is what I call myself.
Yeah. Somebody has to finish a couple of spots off the podium.
Yeah.
And so, or the people on the podium wouldn't, they wouldn't have their podium spot. So,
yeah.
We're all playing our part.
The local events are too easy, and the big races are too hard.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, well, thanks for taking my call after having a kid yesterday.
Yeah. How did you guys hear about that? I didn't post anything about it.
So I had asked Adam for your phone number.
Yeah. Yeah, I texted those guys. I sent a picture in our group text.
Yeah.
So I was like, it had to have been one of those guys that spilled the beans.
Yeah, no, it was Adam. And don't worry, this won't drop for about a week, so you got plenty of time
to sweat. Yeah, I'm not worried about it. I was going to talk about it on the pod next week.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Drew.
People will find out soon enough.
Cool, man. Seriously though, now that like you're in front of
beef is real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking
I'm bringing my boxing gloves to Core 4.
I was going to say we should at Core 4 we should do like a weigh-in, some like shirtless like fist to fist stuff, just like
I 100% agree with that. I'm totally down. I was actually just got off the phone with the promoter of Core 4 like 20 minutes ago.
Oh dang.
And was talking to him about doing it. He just wanted to give me some more details. And I was like, dude, I think I'm in. Like, it sounds pretty legit, and I really don't have, like, I really wanted a reason to not go to Steamboat. So
yeah.
I'm like, yeah, this is it.
Sweet. Well, I'll find a pair of boxing gloves as well, and I'll bring my scale down for us to do a weigh-in.
Yeah. Wait, so since I'm on this podcast, does this mean you'll come on to the Bonk Bros this week?
I would. Yeah, I've been waiting for an invite. I'm open anytime. You don't need to force it into the thing.
What about this week?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
All right, I got your number. I'll text you the details.
Okay.
We couldn't get Lachlan or Chad because apparently they're doing some other race this week. So
yeah.
you'll have to fill their shoes.
Okay. I'll try to grow a mustache and fill Lachlan's place.
I thought you had like an invisible one.
I shaved it.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I didn't notice.
Dang. Well, good chatting with you, Drew.
Yep.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks. See y'all.
So yeah, we were we were somewhere talking about Dylan, and
Yeah, who's the bigger nerd, Dylan
Yeah.
or I? And I think we're both nerdy in our own ways.
Yeah.
He actually goes out and tests tires.
yeah,
I have not, so that's another +1 on his side.
Yeah.
But I'll do the dumb engineering projects and make a frame pack. So
sure.
yeah, there's, he also maybe has sponsors that would say no to that. So
Yeah.
and then I do think if I had the possibility of having a hydration pack skin suit, I would use that.
Yeah.
And I actually in 2021 and 2022 when I did the dam, I did just throw a hydration pack down the back of my skin suit, old school. And yeah, it's not a new idea, but it's cool to see where the industry is going with all of this stuff. And I guess he hasn't ran a disc wheel. I've ran the disc wheel. So
Right.
he's probably the bigger nerd.
Yeah.
Gets bullied more for it. I'm just the quieter. I don't know.
Yeah. No, it's all good. So, this was some of the more most unserious stuff, I think. Aside from Bruce taking his shirt off on the podcast last week, what we just did, we do have to be lighthearted. We do have to have a good time, right? That's part of the fun of bikes too, is the screw around with it. But as we kind of we're going to turn it serious for one more question, and then we're going to kind of redo things. But there is a danger in all of this that it starts to define who you are. And you do, you have your year planned, and you're like, I didn't get in Lifetime Grand Prix, and then I did get into it, and it, I think there's a danger that you see the big documentaries and the YouTube stuff, and even what's going on social, and you're just like, man, I'm really important because of this.
Yeah.
I know that's not how you feel, as we've messaged a ton leading up to this, as I've stayed with you for the last 2 days. I don't get that vibe at all from you, right? You're a normal guy.
Yeah.
As insecure as I am, as insecure as everybody,
Yeah.
But and I also heard you give a quote on, I think it was on Grodio. Yeah, and you said, I don't need to be in the Lifetime Grand Prix in order to inspire people. And that really stuck with me. That, I think you were on that pod before you had gotten into the Grand Prix.
Yeah, because they asked me, what does your season look like?
Yeah, and you you listed off 70 races, mainly local. But that idea that this doesn't define who you are. Besides, what keeps you motivating? What does define who you are? What does, make sure, okay, if I don't have this, it's going to be okay?
Yeah. I guess what motivates me besides race results to keep going is just growing up in the small town. And I look at a lot of people of younger age, and they have so much given to them. And I had Aaron, I had a lot of people mentor me, but I wasn't handed everything in life. It was a lot of, I got to go and find a bike, just so much research along the way. And I feel like I kind of just have a chip on my shoulder. I feel like I have something to prove that you don't need to be wealthy, or you don't need to be super talented. Drew will say he's not talented, but he was winning collegiate national championships. I was getting my teeth kicked in collegiate racing. As a junior, I was getting my teeth kicked in. I want to be able to inspire people that if you work at something super, just give it everything. Quit your job. You can make it.
Yeah.
And that's I have made it in a sense, but it's I just want that one big result that's all of the sacrifices I've made have been worth it.
Yeah.
So that's what keeps inspiring me, is like to lead by example to kids like Isaac or Owen, and like Winona's not a big town. We have mountain bike trails at least, so they can mountain bike, but I want to be able to inspire those small town kids that just don't have everything given to them to be like, don't give up on your dream, even if you're not winning a national championship when you're 18 or 22 even. Like, you know, I'm a 27-year-old in this Lifetime Grand Prix series who I think everyone besides a few of us have national championship titles to our name. And just like, you just have to work your ass off if you're not talented. Like in a good example is in high school, I was a fourth line hockey player. Like and like my parents' garage door is just dented with hockey puck marks because all summer long I was just shooting hockey pucks and working on my shot, because I like to believe I'm the least talented, hardest working person out there. And maybe, you know, it happens and like I get injured or whatever, but when I can, I want to be the hardest person working on the bike, and I want to be the geekiest person off the bike, making sure, you know, my nutrition's dialed, my bike is the fastest setup it can be. It's just all of these small things that when you're not, you know, Keegan can run whatever tires he wants, whatever bike he wants, use regular chain lube, whatever, and he's probably going to win the race. Where like me, it's like, okay, let's look at tires. Let's look at chain lubes. What's the fastest? What's a fast skin suit? Do I have to buy the aero base layer for it? Just like, I have to put in so much more work. And I just want to inspire people to be like, don't give up just because you're not winning as a junior. Like, I think that's what deters a lot of people from the sport. They're like, as a junior, everyone's ambitious. They're like, everyone wants to be a national champion. But and then you get to U23 and some people go away. But there's still a whole bunch of hungry people. But after U23, like, if they don't have a name for themselves, they usually quit. Where me, it's just been like such a slow grind. And to get into the Grand Prix, that's why I said I almost cried in Subway, because it was like, damn, like I'm finally like in this series, like made it, like, you know, 18-year-old me, like would have never believed in that would happen, because it was just like, I'm not talented. Like at my junior nationals when I was 18, I got dropped within the first 5 miles. Like, you know, like, and they were probably, I didn't know how to, I was racing a decent amount, but just, I was so bad then. And even in collegiate racing, like I did have a couple good results. We got second as a team time trial with the U of M, but it's just been these slow, small increments. And I think like anyone out there, if you see improvement, like maybe it's not going from 20th to first place in a year, maybe it's 20th to 15th, maybe it's super slow, or even gravel is really hard right now. It's okay, my results have been going backwards at Unbound, but I'm more and more happy with how they've gone. Like this year I got 40 something, but there were 6 former World Tour riders next to me, and Rob Britton, Tobin, like it wasn't like I was bad. It was it's just such a heavy field now. So what inspires me to keep going is trying to inspire other people.
Because I think, and like we talk about a lot of real stuff on this podcast, so like I think we can dive into this. You and I were sitting at this table, but it was in your kitchen last night, and people see the glamorous side again of all this, and it's a little bit what I talked about in our original question. You make that jump into being a professional. That's hard. The thing we were talking about last night, this is a lifestyle you have chosen. but it is extraordinarily lonely.
Yes. Yeah.
And how important, and the reason I asked about the motivation and like what is defining you is like, I hear that conversation and I'm like, man, this could get hard to stick with for a lot of people if they don't have that motivation, or if they're not defined by something outside of this. And so like, why is this lifestyle so lonely?
Yeah, it's like, I guess maybe as only a pro bike racer, maybe you have a couple more weekends to go hang out with friends. But for me, this lifestyle it's lonely because I've done it by choice almost. So I moved down to Winona, which is 3 hours away from my family and Abigail's family. So first we removed ourselves from most friends and family. So there's that. And then there's the aspect of, we went to Arizona for 3 months, and then it's just race, train. Yeah. And then, so you're not hanging out with your friends, and like, unless you grew up with people who are super close and you bike with them, like my friends, we grew up playing hockey. So like, I don't get to see them because our lifestyles are just different. I love them, but it's, I whenever I go up there, I try to see them, and it usually doesn't work. Yeah. But it's a lot of time on the road, and you're going to races, and I feel like bike racers, like, do they want to get close with me? Like, do we want to have an open conversation of like, hey, like, outside of biking, like, you're having a lot of success, but how are you actually doing as like a person? I don't know if other bikers want to share that like feeling with other bikers, because they could look at it as like, Jim Bob Joe he's crushing it, but his life outside of biking is bad, and if people know about that, then people may use it as like a weakness. So it's just like, you also almost don't want to tell people like if you're going through anything, even though you're seeing these people every single weekend. And maybe there's some that are close, like I bet Keegan and Tobin are close because they're teammates, but it's hard to be away from your true friends, or like, I shouldn't say, it's hard to be away from like your best friends from high school or college or whatever, and then you're just kind of acquaintances with these other people. It's like telling your coworkers your personal life, like, do you do it or do you not? It's a weird dichotomy to be living in, for sure. While you're like, like when I go to work, of course I get along with my coworkers really well. I'm not trying to tear my coworkers apart. That's part of our job. So you're not like, there's not, and my salary or potential salary does not depend on my performance physically against this person. And I think that's just a very strange, I think it is hard to, because of that, the competitiveness just makes us a little more gun shy, just like naturally as a species. And it's made it hard for me to like I look up to a lot, like Alexi, let's say, but it's like, do I go to Alexi and be like, hey, how do I get more sponsors, or how do I get more money? Because like, he is competing for that exact same pot of money, and it's like, no one wants to give away their tips or secrets, or like, I've given out contact info for a few sponsors. I haven't asked for any, but it's like, okay, if I did go and ask someone for, whatever bike or bike component, like, would they give it to me? And then like, what would they say to, that person? Be like, oh yeah, person at SRAM, here's Chase's contact information. He's super nice and does XYZ, and I think it'd be good. Where like, there's only so many sponsorships to be given out, so it's been hard figuring out like my value also as a cyclist to go to these sponsors, and that's, I don't know who to go to figure out that. It's like, do I go to a sponsor and ask for product? Do I ask for $500, $5,000? I don't know what's the appropriate amount. And
there's no like worksheet anywhere of like, if you're doing X, this is your value.
Yeah.
And if you're doing Y, then it's this. And for me, that's been challenging. Obviously, with the podcast, there's some value there with all the mental health content I put out. There's value, but it's the same thing. I'm like, well, I don't know what this is worth.
Yeah.
And like, if you start a conversation and then you get the response, you're excited because you finally got a response.
Yeah.
Because you're sometimes just shooting it into the dark, and sometimes I've walked away from, making the partnership, and I'm like, I don't know if I got what I should have.
Yeah.
Like, because I was just so happy to get something.
Yeah, you're like, did I undersell myself?
Yeah.
Or like, yeah, it's...
And so that's got to be really hard, especially when you're like, only reference points for it, like you said, don't really want to share any of that information.
Mm-hmm. You can't go to Indeed.com and be like, how much does a privateer cyclist with 4 years of experience get? It's like, no, everyone's individual. Every sponsor is individual. Like Silka sponsored me because they kind of saw what I was doing with bikes and goofy setups, and like they really like that, and they also see I am a huge fan of marginal gain. So it's like they're like, oh, that person is perfect. Where maybe even someone who's getting 10th place and has more followers, I shouldn't say 10th because that'd be Dylan at Unbound, 11th place 11th place, like, and has more followers, like maybe they don't want to sponsor that person because he doesn't fit there. So it's just like, and to each sponsor you provide a different value. And even some people are like, Chase, you should just get a like template or a package of like gold, silver, bronze sponsors and send it to people. I'm like, but like I feel like I provide a different value to every brand. Like Silka, I hope I provide a good return on that, but like a different brand, like I don't know, a water bottle company or something. It's like, am I giving them a good return?
Right.
Like it's hard to. I don't want to. Go to every company and. Yeah,
it's also scalable.
Yeah.
It's not, especially for you, because you have like results. It's one thing when we're making a documentary and we're like, okay, we will give you like this big of a logo on the opening screen for this much money, and if you want it bigger, then it's this. Whereas for you, it's like, well, I'm doing this XYZ and I've got all these other pieces.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really have like logo size to sell on my jersey as much as just myself.
Yeah. If I was getting results, sure, I would be like, okay, how much, I'm going to sell. I've thought of selling advertising space on the head disc wheel because it gets a whole bunch of attention. But it's just like, I don't know. Like, everyone's different, and how well can I give them, or give them a return of investment? And
well, shopping season starts soon. So.
Yeah.
All right, couple lighter ones to end on. Gravel, like, ultimately I love mountain biking, but gravel's my jam.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I want to go get lost, that's what I want to do. I know you're the same. We're going to go on a gravel ride somewhere in the United States. Where are you saying we got to go ride in this place?
From my house?
No. Like, we can drive there. We can fly there. Could be right here because this is a pretty dope area to ride a bike. But where do you want to go if you're like, money's no object, we're going on a trip to ride gravel? Where are we going?
We're probably teleporting to Houston, Minnesota, actually. Or like Hoka. So somewhere right along the river. And we're going to hit the gravel south of there. Like in the southeast corner.
Yep.
There's more gravel. Like we can hit gravel right from my doorstep and do mostly gravel. But you can quickly skip some of this stuff, get to the really good stuff that's down there, and just like there's zero cars down there. Like you'll see a car or two here, but down there it's so remote.
Yeah.
And then the bluffs, I feel like, just get more beautiful. Some of the roads, there's more streams to follow,
Yeah.
I feel like. And
Yeah.
just when you're along a stream, it's like the bluff, the road, the stream, and you're just like twisting through the valley. You can't beat that.
No.
And there's a lot of that type of riding down there. Like my friend Paulie, we've talked about him. He's putting on a gravel event October 5th called Old Fashioned Gravel. And when he brought up his idea to me last fall, I'm like, oh, where are you doing it? He's like, well, we'll probably start in Hoka. There's these people that have a farm and they want to start. I'm like, dang it. Like, if I was going to add an event, I was going to have it be
There.
in that area, just because it's the most beautiful gravel. It's secluded. You're not climbing a mountain. It's these bluffs. So the climbing is manageable.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to deal with altitude like Colorado.
Yeah.
It's usually hero gravel. There isn't any quick trips, so that is a bad thing. There is a really cool gas station in New Albin though that has a good stop.
Yeah.
So it'd be like 150 miles. I've made a route for 2 girls before that. It was like, if I had one day to go ride my bike, it would be this route. Or if it was a road bike, the Wisconsin just road stuff is, I feel like I'm in Europe.
Yeah.
And then, but actually if we're riding any bikes, my favorite ride is a mountain bike ride that kind of starts here and you ride gravel over to Stockton. And then, I don't know if we're trespassing, but there's an ATV trail that goes about 15 miles and you're just riding through on this ATV trail. You go through like a farm even, gotta watch out for some cows.
Yeah.
And then you like pop out on the east side and then ride gravel back, or even hit some more ATV trails that I know I'm not trespassing on for that.
The best kind of gravel ride has some trespassing.
Yeah.
Usually.
I don't think there's any trespassing on the mountain bike ride, but that is my favorite ride of all time, where you just, I would do them with Isaac last year. It's just like, I see a trail on Strava. There's no blue, like the Strava heat map. There's no blue line, but I think we can ride it. And I think we can. And just like last year we did this 10-hour adventure ride of just like through the ATV trail to a different ATV trail. We get to that ATV trail. There's ruts like literally I'm in them and they're up to my waist. I'm like, who the heck is riding these? Big truck. So just like honestly a mountain bike ride, not on single track or anything, but like the double tracks. That's my favorite. Where you're like, you could do a 150-mile drive just in a car.
Yeah.
And maybe it's like the redneck side of me that's like, I want to go where the cars can't go, where you could bring your Jeep or your mud-in truck, and like, that's my favorite. I'd say we're either going to go under biking on the gravel bike, or you should have brought your mountain bike, and that's the trail I would do.
Right on. So, a ride that you could do that I know you won't be trespassing, you host a race in this area. It's coming up at the end of the month of July. The Hot Dish, I believe.
Yep.
Tell us about, give us a quick snapshot of the Hot Dish and why you've already heard it's beautiful, folks. If you haven't understood, you need to come down to the Winona, the Driftless area of Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa. It's gorgeous. But tell us about the Hot Dish.
Yeah, so the Hot Dish was just I have a lot of random thoughts on the bike, and I brought up to one of my friends. I was like, I want to hold a gravel race in Winona. I'm like, but I want to make it unique. So then it was like, okay, what can make it unique and what's a good name? And then it was like, let's make it like super Minnesota themed. And then what's Minnesota themed? Hot Dish. Okay. hot dish 100.
Yeah.
Flows really good off
Yeah.
the tongue. But then people were like, oh, it must be 100 miles. So I took the 100 out of the name. So it's just called the hot dish now. And then the first year we did it, the first year was probably more Minnesota themed. So we had a few more signs. We had Glazer Gully, which I hope I can bring back, which is the Quick Trip Glazer donuts.
Yeah.
Hung those up in trees up this bluff climber gully. I dress up as
Paul Bunyan.
Paul Bunyan.
Yeah.
Yep, blanking on the name.
No worries.
Doing that this year, I'll actually have the beard on. Last year I couldn't find it. You know, we call it one of the segments like Ope Hill,
Yep.
which is a downhill gnarly MMR. I feel like I haven't seen pictures from any other gravel race where people, maybe I shouldn't be bragging about this, but a decent amount of people will walk down the hill with how gnarly it is. So that provides a unique experience, I guess. But if you're walking down it, that means you get to enjoy it. It's probably my favorite view and second favorite view. First favorite view in the Driftless is on Paulie's old fashioned course. But you just like look over this valley and like you can see some rock or like a sandstone wall. And then just like so Granny's, I have food afterwards. At the hot dish, everything is Minnesota themed food. So it's tater tot hot dish. We made Minnesota sushi, which if anyone doesn't know, that's a pickle rolled up in ham and cream cheese. It's super, super good. And then we make scotcheroos or special K-bars, what some people call it. So just like a very Minnesota themed meal. And
Right on.
It all starts at a local farm down here that has overnight camping, and it's only $60.
Yep.
We have aid stations every 20 miles in case the hot dish is hot. So yeah, like.
And for those of you that are listening and you're not from Minnesota, hot dish in the rest of the world is referred to as casserole.
Yeah, I forgot about that. I forget that.
You're talking to a Minnesota homie. It's understandable, but it sounds like an amazing event, and at some point I'm gonna come down and do it because it just sounds great. It's a beautiful place to ride, and and when we talk about going on bike rides, talk about riding in a race where you're eating Quick Trip donuts possibly.
Yeah.
If you want to see Chase and I go on a bike ride where we talk about his love and passion for Quick Trip, and we get donuts and we make that gas station stop that I'm always asking other guests about, that will drop on Sunday on YouTube, and you can watch that there. So it's a good time. But Chase, this has been amazing, man, and just really honest conversation. It's been long, which is great. I don't have a problem with that. But I so appreciate you just as a human and open up your house like this for us to come in and do this in person. This is awesome. Thank you for hey, let's call Drew Dillman.
Yeah.
And that was on the fly. We figured that out yesterday. But I just appreciate everything you're doing and everything you're doing to try and bring people into the sport and what you're doing as a bike racer. Incredible, man. And so thank you so much for being on the pod today and for being you.
Thank you for having me, and it's been awesome to finally do a podcast in person with someone, so thank you, John.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a Stable Cyclist Podcast. I'm not going to do the real normal out. We do this every week or week-ish, and we've got some really exciting guests coming up in the month of July that I can't wait for you to listen to. Those won't be in person, but this is incredible. If you have questions for Ask JP Anything that you want to ask me for upcoming Ask JP Anything episodes, you can send us a DM on Instagram at The Stable Cyclist, or you can send us an email, thestablecyclist@gmail.com. Also, if you're listening on Spotify, you can put a question in the Q&A on the episode down at the bottom. And if you are listening on Spotify or Apple, Please give us a rating, please and thank you. And then also, if you are watching on YouTube, be sure to subscribe and hit that like button. We so appreciate each and every one of you watching and listening. And of course, as always, most importantly in all of this, remember that you are loved.